Hello there. Hey, 22 million employed adults in America today work from home all day, every day. 2020 did that. It changed the entire landscape of work. But what about quitting your job completely and starting a company so that you can work from the road? And by the road, I mean globally. Well, today's guest, Nadia Mitchem, did exactly that. She left her corporate job at one of the best places to work, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, to start a company and get on the road. And by that I mean get on the world road, so to speak. Yes, we are talking about remote work and how you can, if you decide that's what you want to do when you grow up, how you can leave your corporate position or take your company on the road if you're an entrepreneur. I'm Barbara Brooks, your age positive spokesperson and speaker and content creator and media guest. Okay. And the entrepreneur behind SecondAct Women. And like a good mixtape, that's what this podcast is all about. We talk entrepreneurship, life, and career at 40, 50, 60 plus, because we've got it going on in middle essence, right? You will always walk away with some tip, by the way. So get out your pen and paper. Now, I want to introduce to you Nadia Mitchem. I met her at an event here in Denver, Colorado. Now, when I met her, I didn't know that actually she had been a part of our SecondAct community, but from afar. And she has been calling Colorado home for the last month and a half. Yes. So I was curious about her lifestyle, her work lifestyle, and what it is how she did this. And next thing you know, I'm inviting her to all the other fun things happening that I'm involved with in Denver, because I really enjoyed her company and also enjoyed her story. So Nadia is a nonprofit executive and a globetrotter, as I said, who has seamlessly integrated her love of travel into her professional life. Now, what began as a planned career sabbatical to solo and what's called slow travel the world evolved into an entirely full-time travel lifestyle. She has 2 careers now because of this. Nadia has over 20 years experience leading the design and implementation of strategic initiatives of the iconic organizations like the American Red Cross, my personal favorite, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and so many other places. She now leverages those exact skills through her own company and through Global Chronicles of Nadia. I love it. I just thought about Nardia or whatever. I don't know. Whatever that movie was for the teens. She does this to empower individuals, though, so that you can achieve your travel dreams as well. So she provides one-on-one. This is a part of her company. She provides one-on-one expert guidance and support for you as you prepare to take your first or next solo trip and slow travel adventure. I can't wait to find out what slow travel is all about. I think I have an idea. But in addition to that, as if that's not enough, she, for travel advising, that is, Nadia also runs Fortify Consulting, which helps nonprofits, because she couldn't leave that behind. That's a part of her DNA, is what I gather. So she helps nonprofits with their strategic planning. Her diverse expertise and true enthusiasm for helping others make her sought after thought leader and partners. So I have to say, welcome to the stage, Nadia. Hello.
Hello, hello. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. I understand that that you just got back from Breckenridge because you were up there with another Second Act woman that you met during your stay here.
Yes, and we had a lovely visit. It was great. I had never been there before, so it was a new experience I'm adding to my mix.
I love it. Well, I know you and Sarah must have had a great time.
We did.
I too, by the way, I have on my shirt from New York because I just came back from hosting a women's event in New York. So I had to be like a traveler and buy the t-shirt. So I've always wanted the I Love New York t-shirt. So I did it when I was at
That was an appropriate purchase. An appropriate purchase for sure.
I have to tell you, by the way, if you have not flown into LaGuardia lately, and maybe you have, but I haven't been through LaGuardia in more than maybe 4 or 5 years. It is beautiful. It is not what it used to be. It was scary back in the day.
It was a little sketch. Yes, it's been much improved.
Oh my goodness. It's like a, I come from the mall industry. Inside was a semi mall in a sense, but that's what shopping centers are doing. So let's talk about remote work. So one of the 3 topics that we're going to talk about, and I find this fascinating, and that is, according to the Pew Research Center, roughly 14% of all employed adults in America are working from remotely. And it says here, that is just over 1/3 of workers in the United States. That's a lot. And and all of this really emerged and became widespread as a part of our modern workplace, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Really because of 2020, right? That kind of started this new trend for the modern workplace.
Yes.
And so it says here, with growing number of companies effectively adopting and implementing this concept, they are seeing their bottom lines go up. And it also says, can you believe that not only is it a boon to the employee, I'm sorry, it's a boon to the employer, but also to the employee, because stats say the company's bottom line can improve because of increased diversity in the talent pool. Absolutely. And the reduction of administrative costs. Now, on top of that, you're saving a lot regardless. On top of that, it says for workers who are working for a company remotely are saving on average $12,000 a year by working remotely, according to Flex Jobs. That's a lot.
I believe it.
What do you think that comes from? That would be what? Gas, clothes?
All of the above. I think it's eating out, it's fuel, it is parking, it is all these little expenses that you don't even think about, contributing to the pot for gifts in the office place. Just all kinds of things are contributing to that. But I think that what they're not accounting for in that 12,000, which is a very large number, just the way people feel. Headspace, being able to think, having desk time to get work done are also, I think, drivers for that bottom line. People can be more productive and they're working on their terms.
That's such a good point. It's almost as if you're given a raise when you're working remotely by saving $12,000 in essence.
Yeah,
right?
Well,
because
don't tell too many employers that.
I know.
I know people want the cash.
Well, let's talk about remote work as a solopreneur, because that was as someone who is working for a company. But you decided, as I said, to completely leave corporate America. I believe you said your last position was with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, who I was a volunteer for many years. I love that hospital and what they do. Why? And why during the time you did it? Because people are going to be surprised at when you did it.
Yes. So it actually is something, you know how we'll have a whisper of some sort, this little tap on your shoulder about taking an action or a leap or something like that. I had felt that I wanted to change either try a new city or do something different for a couple of years before I took my career sabbatical. So I was curious and had a desire to do something. I wasn't exactly sure what it was going to look like. But in 2019 was when I had made the decision that I was going to move forward and plan a break. And I think that breaks should be planned. I do not recommend that someone just take that leap without having given it some, some intention or some thought behind it. But yeah, we had decided in 2019, I'd worked with my financial planner. We had come up with a whole strategy. I had picked a date for when I was going to resign. Turned
Tell them
out
the date.
the date was the week that the country shut down, or the world shut down. And it was really scary at that time. We're all just pushed to think differently and navigate the world in a very different way. And so I did decide to kind of ride the wave to see how things settled. But that whisper never went away. And I said, go ahead and still do it. And so I decided to take the leap. So I left by May of 2020.
You left by May of 2020, and I believe you had started planning a full year ahead. So it wasn't as right. It wasn't as if it was 2020 January of 2020 that you said you were going to leave, or March. No, you had, as you said, you were very strategic on how you planned your way. Now, my question is, did you plan? Did you? Because I'm getting who you are just from the interactions I've had with you. Did you have a map and say, okay, in May of 2020, and now the pandemic has happened, but regardless, you said, my first stop is here, and then my next stop is here. So did you have that whole year planned out? And how long are you at places?
Yes. So it turned out I did not. And that was something, in thinking differently and pushing myself differently, it was a big decision to even take a break in the first place. I had left a career that, you've earned your stripes in a lot of ways, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, can I afford the time away? What is that going to look like? And I'll answer your question in two parts. So one, because I know that people have curiosity about the work piece and disrupting one's career. What happened was, as I encountered headhunters or people who were interested in my background, they were often more interested in talking about me taking a sabbatical than they were the actual skills. They were like, yeah, we know you can do all that stuff, but tell me about what you learned on this trip, or the highlights, or things of that sort, because you're building life skills and some of those soft skills that are really important to employers. Now, secondarily, to answer the other
Can I say something to that? Can I say something to that? What I love is that you just said, even at 40 something, you said that you were building your life skills.
Absolutely.
More skills. What life skills are you building by being on the road and saying, I'm out of here? And by the way, your parents had to say, what is my child doing?
Well, okay, so I'll answer those two. On when it comes to the skills, I would say that resilience, being able to make decisions on your feet, dealing with adversity or just when things don't go as planned. And I think just autonomy, being self-directed, because you're totally in charge of your time, your day, what you're going to do, in a way that you perhaps hadn't for decades, because you were in a structure of a workplace in a 9 to 5 and had a supervisor and a team or people depending on you in a different way. So that was the first part of your question. The second part related to kind of family support and the support of my community. I was very fortunate in that I had tremendous support. In fact, there were people who told me that they were so excited to see this happen, because they thought it was something that they could never see themselves do. And so in some cases, it's like they were living through my experience. But yes, I had tremendous support. And I think that the support that I got from my family wasn't a big surprise to me. It was definitely comforting, but we had, even growing up, were encouraged to be curious and to try new things
Love it.
and to explore a little bit. So I definitely turned it up a notch by the way I did it. But yes, and then I don't think I answered your question about the planning piece of
Yeah.
it. So yes, I did have a loose sense of where I wanted to go, but in terms of stretching me, that was where the travel novelty piece was, in that I did not plan a whole list of places I wanted to go. I actually travel with a folding map, and I'll stand in front of the map and take a look at it.
I
And
love it.
sometimes it might be that there was a flight that was really inexpensive, or there was something interesting happening, and I would subject myself to whim, which is not something that immediately comes to mind when you think about, oh, me taking the sabbatical. One, it was probably odd for me to do something like that, so unstructured. But then to just say, no, I don't have a big plan for what I'm going to do after the next 4 weeks.
Wow. And so, I have so many questions that I hadn't asked you in the times that we've been together. Do you have a car, or do you fly places?
Yes and yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I will road trip in the U.S. And so I do have a car. It stays with my family, and it gets driven around the block to keep it going, check the air in the tires while I'm
Keep that
overseas.
battery alive.
Yeah, yeah. And then when I'm in the US, I will road trip. So as an example, I drove over several days to come to Denver. So I drove from the Midwest out to Denver and just did it leisurely. And I think that's the benefit of this lifestyle, in this travel lifestyle, in that I can do things slowly. I don't have to kind of squeeze things in a narrow bit of time. I can plan accordingly to take, a day to drive across Kansas, or something along those lines.
Well, and where have you been over the course of the 4 years you have been slow traveling? And explain what slow traveling is, because maybe that's it. It's just spending time over the course of months in a different location.
Yeah.
And you're originally from St. Louis or the DC area? St.
St.
Louis, yeah.
Louis. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So where have you been? Where have your travels taken you?
Oh my. So I have been traveling for most of my adult life. And so my number of countries, which I think, people throw out their numbers and it doesn't always, they mean different things. Sometimes if they count it as in the airport, which, some people have
Yeah.
opinions about whether or not that counts. But I've been to about 40 different countries, which have been in different regions of the world. When I was traveling, or as I continue to travel, I've traveled throughout the US. So there was a trip where I drove to Arizona and then did a swing back through Texas and Oklahoma and then back. Another time I went through Kentucky and Atlanta, and made my way over to parts of North Carolina, up through Virginia to New York, and then across. So it really does vary. Sometimes I will book or plan my trip around a family event or a friend's event or something. I might have an anchor and then build around. But I often will add things on and look at things that I think are interesting along the way. And then to talk about the definition of slow travel, I think in its most basic sense, it is simply not rushing and enjoying and doing a meander and being able to immerse and smell the roses in ways that you don't typically do. I would look at my slow travel experience as being somewhere if we look at vacation on one end of a spectrum and residency on another end of the spectrum, I'm somewhere in the middle, because I'm not on vacation in the sense that I'm trying to do all the things within the 7 days that I'm in a particular location. I have time to understand the routine. I'm doing dishes, I'm taking the trash out, I'm going to the farmer's market, I'm seeing a rhythm in the community that you don't often get the enjoyment of or the benefit of when you are on vacation, but you do with as a resident, right? I get to know some of the neighbors. I really kind of immerse and get connected and plugged in, much like what we've seen in the last couple of the weeks
Weeks.
that I've been here. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, and that's the thing is you find your vibe and you just, get invited to this, that, and the other because you are about community building. I
Mhm.
remember you saying wherever you go,
Absolutely.
let's talk about the work part of it. So
Mhm.
you have a consultancy. Is
Mhm.
that most of what your solopreneurship is, or is it the travel advising?
Well, but in both instances, I am a solopreneur. So the answer to your question is yes and yes. But I think when it comes to the work, I put both opportunities on my calendar and work with them. I'll prioritize and structure my time a little differently based
Yeah.
on what I'm trying to accomplish in one area or the other. But yes, so I definitely will work, but I have tremendous flexibility in how I structure my time, the benefit of which you don't typically see when you're working with a traditional employer environment, right? Like yesterday, I was able to go to Breckenridge,
Right.
and that's not something I mean, I probably could have done it but I would have had to take a vacation day and manage it a little differently. Whereas now I can structure my time based on my terms.
So, what does your average work week look like?
Yeah.
And are you plopping up? Do you find the latest, greatest coffee shop that you've heard of, and that's where you work from? Are you working from the Airbnb? Or tell us a little bit about what does that look like?
Yeah, I do mix it up. And I do, for example, here in Denver, I've gone to get some work done. I love going to a food hall type of market. So I've gone to, what is it, Edgewater, and then Stanley. Is that the name of the other
Uh
one?
huh.
Or another
Yeah.
one? So I've gone there to get some work done, just to mix it up. Sometimes I'll do it around the lunch hour for a couple of hours just to change scenery. Sometimes I will just work from my accommodation because it's easier to just have all my stuff with
Yeah.
me, or I'm on a call, right? And it's nice to have the camera set up and the lighting and the things of things that are important to, and sound quiet, that
Yeah.
make those types of interactions easy to have. But typically, I try to not burn myself out, which I think, and I know a lot of your listeners are also business owners themselves, is so easy to do.
Yeah.
And so 2024 has actually been my year of finding systems and structures that help with automation. So I've been utilizing different technology tools to just help manage my business operations differently. And I am utilizing my resources, meaning I am tapping into and leveraging relationships within networking groups. I'll join virtual communities sometimes. One example was I joined a writing group for things that I was working on. Sometimes I was working on like creative writing, and other times it was like I had to put a PowerPoint together. But it was a virtual writing community where it was the same group at the same time, Monday through Friday. And so we would kind
Okay.
of do a virtual work and co-working session. So that's an example of ways in which I get things done, but find community, and you're able to infuse some of that productivity and quite frankly learn a new skill too, because you're the way I'm
Yeah.
using technology in the midst of getting some of these things done.
So before we tap into trends in remote working,
Uh-huh.
can you tell me, you just mentioned tools, and I was going to actually ask you that. What,
Yeah.
as a solopreneur, regardless of being a remote worker or not, what are some of the tools that you find, whether they're tech tools or, or it's a laptop, what tools and platforms are you using?
Yeah, so I test out a couple, and some work and some don't. Oddly enough, I often will come back to pen and paper, and so that
Too,
has been
every time. And I love technology. I can't tell you how many platforms I have used when it was from Basecamp back in the day to Monday.com to Asana, or Google Keep. Oh, girl, I'm with you.
yes, yes. So one of my favorite tools, and I showed this to you before, so I'll hold it up for the camera, is I use a timer
Yes.
to manage my.
Show it. Show it again. Show it.
Let's see, I don't know if it. Let me see if I can find something dark to put behind it.
Yes, I love this timer. I've seen one of my YouTubers that I follow uses this, and I forgot what it's called. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't think you can see it as well,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's a timer, and I like it because I focus on a singular task. I think with as being a solopreneur, we have so many things that we're responsible for everything. And so trying to get it done and feel like you have to be completely done as opposed to making incremental movement on a task. This timer has helped me manage a lot of just getting stuff done and making I will say, I remember those moments where you have the end of the workday comes and you have 15 emails open and none of them got sent.
Yes.
This helps me avoid that because I get an incremental thing done and
Yeah.
I feel like I've made progress on different activities. So that's one thing I utilize. Yeah, definitely a notebook just for thoughts. And then I have a pen stuck
And
in
I
it.
saw you even had an old school when we did social work. You even had an old school notebook, like
Yes, I mean,
from
I
college.
literally, yeah, I go to Walmart and I buy the inexpensive one subject notebook, and then I do scan the pages and put them in a digital tool. So I was trying a bunch of different like Evernote and some of the other similar note-taking tools, and I
Yep.
ended up going back to I think it's called Microsoft Notebook, which is part of the standard suite. So that's what I use where I scan my images and create notebooks digitally that way.
So
Another,
you're not using OneNote, Microsoft's OneNote, which
I
is,
don't think it's OneNote. I think
their
this one is,
version of you know,
yeah,
of a notebook. Yeah.
I just went back to this one. It was just some things
Love
you
it.
just go back to old school.
You do.
A tool that helps keep me organized and I guess intentional about my day is I do use the high performance planner.
Yes, you
So
do.
that is it's a little heavy, so I don't use it as readily when I'm traveling for stretches, but it's something that helps me kind of collect my thoughts. You can take a look at it online, but this one has been a good one for me. As silly as it may sound, a quality ink pen.
A quality what?
Ink pen.
Oh,
I
quality pen.
there's someone had gifted me a pen, and I love writing with that pen. I just feel like it just helps with productivity. It slides across the page well. It just, is it just works well. So a quality pen. So those are some of my analog tools, right? The clock as a digital tool. In terms of other technology tools, I do use the Microsoft OneNote. I do utilize the resources of Fiverr. Sometimes I just need to get a task done, so I'll do that. In terms of software, I do sometimes order template packages for standard resources like proposal templates or just informational documents. So sometimes I'll utilize those. In terms of other like organizing for invoices and contracts, I started to use a software called Dubsado.
Oh, quite a few. That's one that I think a lot of coaches use, I believe.
Yep, yep,
Dead
I think so.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
so that's the software that I utilize, which has made life a bit easier. Let's see,
We'll take one
Calendly.
more. Yeah. Are you using QuickBooks
I
or FreshBooks or any of those?
No, I actually have someone's proprietary tool for that.
Got it.
And then yeah, so I utilize some of it old school and then some of it is just test drive new technologies that I heard about.
There is no shame in the game in going after the old school, new school.
No. I
Yes,
think the
yes,
thing
yes,
is just being
yes.
intentional about jotting it down. One
Yeah.
of the other things that I think was so important for me feeling grounded in the spaces I travel is I travel with a calendar. So it's like a mini calendar and I put it on my
Oh,
desk
okay.
to just keep track of the date.
Okay. Now that's my Android. But all right, so as we come to a close,
Yeah.
can you talk to us about can you give the women over 40, humans and they, any maybe a couple of high level tips on what they should do if this is something they want to do? And even if they're just going to do it for 6 months and say, you know what, since I'm a solopreneur, I'm gonna get on the road.
Or a month. Like it
Or
all
a
matters.
month.
I think when you were talking about the Pew, I think it was Pew stats that you had mentioned, but I think something that's even more telling about our ties to work, at least for Americans being tied to work, is that even if we're on vacation for 7 days, we spend more than half of that time on vacation worried about work, either worried about work or plugged into work. And so time and finding space for you to actually unplug is so critical. I think travel is one of the best and most effective ways to do it. I think it's transformative. It opens your eyes, it opens your mind, it opens your heart in a lot of ways. So along those lines, when it comes to travel, and especially solo travel, even if you have a family, but stepping away and not being beholden to anyone else's schedule or demands or interests or their agenda. Solo travel, I think, is a game changer. I think that can really help people, whether they're trying to think about a big decision, whether they're trying to navigate a project at work, they just need, or if they just simply need some space. But when it comes to solo travel, I think that there are some common fears. And so, a resource that I have that I can share with you guys is a guide that I put together about that talks about the common fears and some actions or things you can do to help mitigate any worries that you have. Because once you get past that hump, of any anxiety or concern you have about solo travel, your world opens up. You can become a more effective leader, a better partner, a better community member, a better worker. I mean, all of it. There's nothing that you can't get better at through travel. And I'm a bit of an evangelist about it because I believe so much in it, so much so that I decided to color outside the lines and flip the script on what I had been doing for 20 years in order to enjoy the spoils of travel. And I really think there are ways that people can marry the two, but start with, that big step around that solo trip.
Okay, so knowing that, what are maybe 2 to 3 trends in remote working?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to just remote working trends in general, we're seeing a lot of hybrid models. So it's a way to let people have the best of both worlds. COVID was very much 100% remote for a lot of people, but coming up with ways where you can still tap into that community, because I think that's a huge part for why people enjoy the workspace, is that community aspect and the water cooler conversation. So that's one thing, is just hybrid models. So have that conversation with your leadership team and see if that's a viable option. I think the notion of sabbaticals or career breaks is definitely becoming more and more popular and more accessible. It has been historically something that you would see in education, like professors would take a sabbatical to write a book or to do some research. And you also saw it in tech spaces where people would get a break just to step away because of the grind and the intensity, to kind of refresh and then come back and have more creative contribution that they're able to make. But what you also find is that in some areas, in mainstream environments, right, like outside of tech or outside of academia, employers are giving people leave that would allow them to take a sabbatical. So one thing that I put in the guide is check your employee handbook and look at the leave policy, because there may actually be space for you to test drive doing a big sabbatical or leap, and your job might still be protected, right? You don't necessarily have to quit your job and do something as bold as what I did in order to still enjoy the
Oh.
benefits.
So are you saying that if it's written, because I remember you talking to a woman about this who was
Hmm.
struggling with her current position and
Hmm.
wanting to do something different. And you said to her, check to see, you said to her that exact thing is check the employee handbook. But I
Hmm.
didn't ask, I didn't follow up when I was listening to you. So you're saying, because I would be scared that I would come back from the sabbatical and my job is gone, especially if I'm over 50. That I
Yeah.
would think that that's their perfect time that they're going to say goodbye. So you're saying probably the policy might say that you're protected on the sabbatical.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation, right? If you're in a situation where you would like to return to that employer, you can come up with an agreed upon arrangement with the employer. It's going to look different. It could look different depending on the circumstances, the type of environment, but the employee manual is a place to start to have the conversation, right?
Okay. I
So
would, yeah.
and so it's really just having that discussion about leave and what that looks like. And they call it different things. It might be a break, it might be a sabbatical. Some employers actually would give people a stipend. Sometimes it's based on tenure. So you may be eligible for this type of a break, a 3-month break, a 1-month break. And it's encouraged in certain creative spaces, in particular in technology, and if they have a policy of that sort.
Uh-huh.
And they want you to come back refreshed. They want you to do it. They
I
want you to
love
take the
that.
break.
Okay.
So, but my point is, see what's there,
Yes.
and if there is an opportunity, explore it and just
Yeah.
learn. And maybe you can find a model that works for you, but maybe not, right? It might not
Yeah.
exist. It's not, I wouldn't say it's common, but it's
Yeah.
definitely there.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Do you have one more before we leave?
One more, what? A
Oh,
tip?
trend. I didn't know if you had another one. If you don't,
Yes.
it's all good.
Yeah, I think another trend that could be interesting for people is around the idea of applying their skills and turning it into an enterprise, right? So one thing that you could look into, and this is what people are doing, is you've seen or you see fractional roles where people give a percentage of a shared role. If you are, I don't know, a marketer, and a company may need a CMO or some other leader, and you are able to provide some fractional support. So that's something that I'm hearing about more and more. And oftentimes you don't have to go into the office, or you're able to negotiate it. And so you can enjoy it from the comfort of your home or on the road or whatever, environment works for you that you arrange with that employer. So those are three that I think are really interesting: the hybrid, the idea of a sabbatical or a break of some sort to refresh, and then people kind of writing their own story and leveraging their skills in new ways, whether that turn into a solopreneurship scenario, or if they're doing something part-time, a side hustle, or if they're just exploring in order to prepare for a pivot later on.
Woo! This is all so good. And I still have a ton more questions to ask you. So I might have you come back at another time.
All
Because
right.
yeah, one of the questions I would have is, and don't answer it, but I
Okay.
would like to have a conversation about how, if you become a solopreneur, how do you find your clients if you're
Ah,
always traveling and things? So someone just wrote in here. So let's just, okay. Lisa Marie
uh-huh.
just said, I just ended a 10-year stint in my global relocation industry. Many companies won't allow an employee to work from anywhere as a remote employee due to tax laws. So somebody mentioned this at the conference I was saying
Yep.
before. Due to tax laws in other countries, that could be triggered. But if they do, or they have a business presence in other countries, it's often easier to get permission to work there. Personally, I'm starting to love the idea of building a fractional consulting career. I love
Yes.
that. Yeah, I remember someone was talking about that at this conference that I was just at,
Yep.
Reimagine in New York, about the tax laws,
Yep.
and there's some other safety and security issues that could come up for an employee that is working for a company? Now, these are people working for companies.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I am not an advocate of go somewhere and don't tell your employer.
Oh,
I
God,
definitely
right?
think that it needs to be a conversation because of the data breaches, just reliability of information transfer. Some countries have different rules around data that we don't necessarily have here. So to Lisa Marie's point, it's definitely something that you'd want to have a conversation with your employer about. I do have a couple of friends who work for US-based companies, and they have their company is supportive of them living in a different country or working remotely. And what it looks like, and just giving one example, is one friend has to notify IT if she's going to be working remotely, even if it's just to check her email, because they need to set up a pathway for her to get information, like to do secure transmissions. The IT team sets it up within that company. So
That makes
that
sense.
is something that, could be explored depending on maybe your role, the type of work that you do, the type of information that you're transferring. So there's definitely some rules. I'm not advocating anybody breaking anybody's
You
rules.
sure are. I know that's you. You're very on the up and up. Absolutely. All right. My last question to you is,
Sure.
since you're road tripping across the United States and road tripping, finger quotes, across the globe trotting, as you said, what's on your Spotify list? Give me 2 or 3 things that's on your Spotify list.
Yes. So I can't get into specifics, but here's what I do. I will download some podcasts and I'll do a mix. And then I will often do books, which sometimes if I'm driving and I need to stay alert, I sometimes will listen to scary books. Just because it keeps me a little bit on edge. And then when it comes to music, it depends on the vibe. So I may listen to country. I love classical music. I will listen to some hip hop. I'll listen to some kind of soul. It really is a hodgepodge depending on my mood, the vibe, and where I am.
I get it. And let me tell you, you need to get 70s road trip or yacht rock on your list if you don't have it.
I found it.
Oh my gosh, I just discovered it. I thought yacht rock was I don't even want to go into it. But it's a mixture of 70s artists, from rock and classic rock to Stevie to Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's like a mixture of everything. Girl, you got to get some yacht rock on your
I'm here for it.
70s road trip. Literally, that's what it's called, the 70s road trip. Well, I want to say thank you. And I'm so happy that I met you at Cocktails and Conversations a couple of weeks ago. It has been a true pleasure. I know you're leaving Colorado in a couple of weeks, in July, I believe. And I think you're headed to London later this year. And so I want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure. We all can't wait to follow you. I have a resource that you are giving them, and the resource is, really briefly, what is that resource?
Yeah, it's related to overcoming travel fears so that you can take that solo trip.
Perfect. So I will put that in the show notes, and I want everyone to be back here next Thursday morning. We were a little late because I got in late from New York. So normally it's at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, but I want you to know that if you're 40, 40 is the new fabulous. If you're in your 50s, it's the new fierce. And if you're over 60, you're all a force. I will see you, I will see you back here next Thursday. This is recorded. You can find this anywhere you get your podcast, and it's also on YouTube. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.